Hello and welcome. Welcome to today's video. I'm so glad you're here. So today I want to talk about the 3 unintentional mistakes that perfectionists often make when they're setting their goals, especially for the new year. And by the end of the video, you'll know what those mistakes are, why you might be making them, and what to do instead, with this bigger aim of helping you create goals and create systems that allow you to build momentum over time and help you dynamically move towards what you really want in your life, rather than what is so common for perfectionists, which is this start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, which can lead to swirling and like perfectionism paralysis, which is where you're like, overthinking what it is and feeling like you need to research a bunch before you can move forward, and just like that deep self-doubt, questioning, stress, inner critic jumps in. It gets really bad really fast. So instead of doing this whole process is designed to help you build and be dynamic and be self-compassionate and really create goals and action steps that support you, that really serve you. So I'm really excited about this content. Please stick around until the very end of the video, because I'm going to share a really clear process that you can take that integrates all the ideas that we're going to talk about today. So with that, let's dive in. Now, before I get to the 3 unintentional mistakes, and they are unintentional, I really want to underscore that word, because I know, as a recovering perfectionist myself, and with all the wonderful high achieving perfectionist kind of women that I have spoken with and that I've worked with as a coach, I know how incredibly uncomfortable it is to feel like you've done something wrong. And so these are unintentional mistakes. These are really ultimately incredible opportunities for growth. And I want you to think of it that way. And with that said, I know that there might be discomfort here. I know there might be that impatience of wanting to just skip to the end, like just tell me the answer. Like, I don't want to live in this mistake for 1 second longer. And I just want to give you an invitation to take a breath. It's okay. Part of the learning journey and part of the healing journey when it comes to unwinding these perfectionist patterns is to sit with the discomfort of not having it all figured out, of realizing that maybe there's ways you could have done it better, and not just rushing to fix it, but to just sit with it. You right now, as you are okay. And you're right where you need to be. It's really okay. And so if you want to take some deeper breaths with me, if you want to do a little tapping is a tool that I use a lot in my coaching practice. And there's all these different tapping points, but the one I love as like a go-to is under the collarbone point. You can even just massage here or press. So there's your collarbone, then there's this area right beneath it, just to calm yourself. This sends a calming signal to the amygdala part of our brain, and ultimately sends a calming signal to the whole body, to the nervous system. It reduces cortisol. They've studied this. So it's just like a calming thing. It might make you yawn. It always makes me sigh a little bit. So you're good. We're good. Thank you for being here. All right. So the other thing I want to do before we talk about those 3 unintentional mistakes is to provide a bigger picture framework. So what we're talking about when I talk about goals here. So I like to think of 3 basic elements. There's the intention, there's the goal itself, and then there's the action steps that kind of support it all. And the action steps could be something where it's a regular cadence, right? Maybe it's a daily activity or a weekly activity or process that you're going through, but it's what you're doing. It's the action item. Then with the goals, that's more like the specific target, right? Maybe it's more about your external world, the physical world of getting that certification, changing that health biomarker, getting a certain number of hours of sleep, meeting a certain type of person, finishing a class, whatever it is. It's like this, like more tangible, or going on a certain number of vacations, or that one very specific vacation, earning a certain amount of money. So it's more measurable, tangible, kind of in the world type things. Whereas intentions, those are more about how we want to feel and kind of the themes of what we want to be focusing on. So I'll use an example throughout this video to anchor all of this information, because I feel like that's really, I feel like examples are helpful. I hope it's helpful for you. So for this video, I'm going to use the example of having the action item of walking 10,000 steps a day. I feel like that's a common one. A lot of people who are into like health and mental health and all that jazz, that's a goal for them often is. And so we'll refer to the action item often as a goal, right? It's like my daily goal of 10,000 steps. Okay, so we've got that. Then the goal of like what we're hoping for that to help us achieve is usually something that takes more time. So the action item of 10,000 steps could support a certain health goal. Maybe that's weight maintenance, weight loss, other biomarkers, mental health. Maybe it's almost like a self-concept goal of like, I want to be the kind of person who spends more time outside, whatever it is. Or maybe it's just, I want to be the person who walks a lot, because maybe you're walking inside. Then the intention is more about how you want to feel, what you imagine that all that activity, all of those specifics will help you feel. And this can be really personal. I'm going to, for this example, say that the goal is that the intention, see what I did there? The intention is to feel more peaceful in a day-to-day way, to be resting deeper at night, to feel more refreshed and balanced throughout the day. So kind of a sense of peace, balance, kind of supporting mental health, this like sense of wellness, right? And we can get more specific in that, but we'll call it like this, like well-being is the intention behind it. And with that in mind, we'll dive into what these 3 unintentional mistakes are. Okay, so unintentional mistake number 1 that we so often make is when we go to set the goals, we do it from an ungrounded place. And what do I mean by ungrounded? I mean that our energy is outside of ourselves. We're somehow kind of dysregulated, discombobulated, and that sets us up to create goals that are made more from a reactive place, a place of feeling like we're not enough or kind of self-aggressive. It can be this kind of anxious place that we're creating goals from, which I imagine you can tell is like, oh yeah, that probably is going to set me up for less than the best outcome. Now, why would we do that? Why would we set a goal from an ungrounded place? Well, first of all, it's usually totally under the radar. We do not realize that we're feeling ungrounded as we're going to set our goals. So many of us, especially in Western society, and especially if you've got the perfectionism thing going on, are just living in our heads, living it like not even the head, just like the brain, right? Just here. And meanwhile, there's all this stress, all this information happening down here in the body, in our whole, the rest of our system, right? The subconscious, the stress, the tension, the heaviness, the clenching in the jaw, whatever it might be. And we don't realize that. 1, because we've numbed out to it. 2, because we're just not in the habit of paying attention. And 3, because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to notice. What do you do with that? When you do notice, it's like, I don't know, that's uncomfortable. Let's think about something else. So we don't always have the tools to know how to work with what we observe in the body when we get present with it. So this ungroundedness actually isn't that hard to shift and correct. So what we can do instead is simply take some time to get grounded. And if you're like me and you're here on YouTube and you're on this channel, chances are you really have a lot of tools that you love that help you get grounded, whether that's meditation, yoga, walking, dancing, breath work, tapping, journaling, whatever it might be. What I'd like to specifically guide you towards is some kind of practice that helps you get into your body and calms your mind. So rather than doing things that stimulate your mind, like listening to more information, or even doing like guided meditations, or music with lyrics or things like that, where it's like kind of putting you up more into your head and the verbal space, take some time to do something that helps you get into your body. So breathing while moving, walking around the yard, observing the plants, like doing something that gets you into your body, kind of slows everything down. The body likes to move slowly. A lot of times the messages that our body wants to give us, we feel them when we go a little slower. So slowing it all down a little bit. Doing a body scan, right? Movement. So getting into your body is a powerful way to get grounded. I could do a whole other video on the reasons we get ungrounded because, right, there's societal stuff, there's shoulds, there's expectations, there's the way we've internalized the external expectations. But one that feels really prevalent and really pertinent to, sorry, that's a lot of fun P words, to this topic right now, that I think so often happens, I know I've done this, is that we get ungrounded in the process of goal setting because we start with the review. We start by reviewing how last year went, and then we move right along to, and now what? Now what would I like to do instead? It makes logical sense, I feel like. And so often this is what we're invited to do. And I want you to ask yourself, really reflect, when you have done your review of last year, how you did with your goals, which goals you accomplished, which goals you didn't quite do, which, like that's just that whole assessment. How do you feel? Like really truthfully. Maybe you feel pretty good. You're like, yeah, I did the things. Off we go to do more of the things. And you know what? I made some mistakes along the way. That's okay. Here's how I'm going to do better. Like maybe it feels pretty mellow, pretty easy. If so, that's great. Maybe this process will still work for you. That being said, I think there's a number of us who go through that review process and either consciously or kind of consciously or totally not consciously, we get pretty dysregulated. And to me, this makes so much sense because maybe you've had a goal year over year over year over year that you keep not accomplishing, right? It's like, oh, I really want to like stick to this certain schedule or achieve this certain goal or finish that one thing or become the kind of person who reads a book a month or whatever it is, and it keeps not happening. And there can be this feeling of being like a failure and feeling hard on yourself. And depending on how intense your inner critic is, that inner critic can come in and be nasty and be really cruel and say things that aren't true, can tell you stories about yourself and about what's true about life, about what's possible, about what's not possible. And it can lead to this kind of heavy, painful place that a lot of times will then react and be like, oh, I got to do something different, right? That pain can oftentimes trigger some kind of action, or it can, we could just stay stuck in it, which that is really hard. So there can be, to some extent, there can be a lot of pain and stress that comes from that review process when we think about the goals we haven't achieved. And I'd even argue that there are ways sometimes when we've achieved certain goals that we still get a little tweaked. One of the main ways that I've seen this, when I first started coaching women, I was working on body image and emotional eating with them. And a lot of them would come to me and they'd say, in the past, I've lost the weight that I wanted to lose, but then I gained it back. And part of what would happen for them was when they lost the weight, they'd be like, I made it, I did it. I should feel good about myself now. I should love myself, love my body, feel good about life. Like I'm finally this ideal me. I'm this ideal version of me. So everything should come together now, right? I should feel good. Life should be great. And there would be this hollowness because in their process of losing the weight, they hadn't addressed the emotional component. So they were still left with the heavy emotions of self-criticism, not enoughness, all of that. And so it was such a painful feeling to have achieved the goal, but to not feel how they ultimately thought they'd feel from achieving that goal. And that's why, going back to the beginning of this video, I talked about intention, goal, and action items, because if you're just focused on the action items and goal and you don't know what the bigger intention is, the deeper feeling is, you could end up achieving the goal and it could feel hollow. And that is really painful in its own way, almost worse, I think, than just not achieving it. It's just different flavors of pain. We don't need to make it a hierarchy. So there could be lots of different feelings, basically, that come up from reviewing how last year went and how your life has been going. And so one thing specifically, since we're talking about goal setting and New Year's goal setting, I want to really highlight this, that take time after you review to process the feelings that come up, even just to give yourself a little distance. So the bare minimum here is just create a little bit of space between the review process and then the visioning and goal setting for the new year, to just kind of recalibrate, right? Whether that's that you do some grounding there and you get into your body, or it's that you take a night or take a week, or, talk to a coach, talk to a therapist, talk to your best friend who is secretly your therapist, or journal, or whatever it might be. Separate those two out and see how that changes things for you, because chances are, whether it's conscious or unconscious, there's some dysregulation happening with that initial review phase. It's still an important phase that I really encourage you all to do. But just give it a little time to digest. Because this aim of getting grounded and making decisions from a grounded place where you're connected to your body, that's huge. And you're more connected to yourself. That's part of it here. Now, another layer with this, to counteract this like ungrounded tendency we can have, is once you get grounded, I really encourage you to first get grounded. Then I want you to think about what your values are. So what do you really value? You can write out just kind of a brain dump of a bunch of ideas, a bunch of words that resonate and come to mind. And then you can whittle it down. Or maybe you can just feel there's a few, maybe it's 2, 3, 4, 5 that really resonate. For example, these could be like connection, integrity, kindness, honesty, clarity, playfulness, adventure, beauty. So your values can be these kind of themes, these emotions, these qualities. But take some time to just think about what your values are. And they don't have to be perfect, and they don't have to be set in stone. These are values that you're going to use as focal points for the next couple months, maybe the next year, and that you're going to just grow alongside and see how that helps guide you. So getting clear on what your values are, it kind of helps to orient, right? The intentions, the goals, the actions, are they in alignment with my values? I like to think of values as an inner compass and a way to kind of check, like, wait, are we headed north or are we headed a different direction? Like, which direction are we headed right now? And that it helps us orient to like, oh yeah, I really value peace and honesty. Is this in alignment with that? Is this supporting that? Yes, no, maybe. Ooh, let's adjust. Right? So, 2, undo and untangle unintentional mistake number 1. We take time to get grounded, get into the body, and we take some time to connect with our values as this internal compass that helps us come back. So what I like about that is that we're including our cognition, right? It's that mental as well as the body. So the body's online, the mind's online. It's really good. Okay. So now, it's so funny. I keep messing up that word. Unintentional. Unintentional mistake number 2 is that when we set our goals, I love this one, by the way, like if you really like practical, like how do I just make some tiny tweaks to make everything I'm doing better? This is the one for you. So the mistake is that we set goals that are really rigid and kind of fragile. And basically what I mean by that is that the goal is kind of all or nothing, right? If you deviate a little bit, you feel like you're a failure, and you kind of, it's that whole start stop thing where you're doing it great. And to take it back to our example of the 10,000 steps a day, you're doing it. And then one day, oh man, I only got 6,000. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do the 10. And there could be this feeling, whether it comes on all at once or incrementally, of like, I'm not doing my goal. Oh, I'm not being the ideal me. Oh no. Like, and then we could start to basically dwell on the mistake. Maybe the inner critic jumps in there, right? It gets bad real fast. And why do we do this? Why do we create? I always like to bring in the why, because this helps us have more self-compassion. So why would we do that? I think part of why is because creating these like specific, very like high level goals feels like the right thing to do, right? It's like, but that's the thing I need to do to achieve the things I want to achieve. So obviously that's the thing to do. I think the other piece that comes in here is that it's because you're so strong and capable and you can achieve really great things that you'd even try to push yourself to do that, right? That's part of what goes on with this like high achieving, high expectation of self patterning and the perfectionism patterning. It's like, I know I could do it if I just did it. And there's a way that that's not, that lens on ourselves is incomplete. It's not the whole picture of the way that our energy fluctuates, the way that life happens, and all the other variables. So it's okay that you try to make these goals, right? That you're making these rigid goals, and there's a better way. So what to do instead? Instead, I'd like you to do two things. I'd like you to, one, create a range for each goal. And now let's be clear. When I'm talking about these goals, I'm really talking about the action items. But I think you can also apply this to the bigger goal, right? So if the bigger goal is to have, going back to our example, to achieve certain weight maintenance, weight loss, or other biomarkers, maybe it's like blood pressure, etc., or sleep scores, or something like that, you could give yourself a range of what would still mean like meeting that goal. So give yourself a minimum and a maximum. And so the minimum would be like, okay, what would I still feel complete and satisfied and happy about that feels like the minimum? And okay, and then what's the max? I think it's good to set a max, especially if you got the perfectionism thing in there, because there is a max usually, right? We can often think, oh, more is always better, especially if this conditioning comes from school where it's like, just do more extra credit, right? Like just do all the extracurriculars. More is always better. But there actually is an upper limit, and that's helpful for us to be honest with ourselves about, because we live in this physical world. We have a limited amount of time. There are limitations to the physical plane. So it's like, get honest with what that would even be. I was talking about this recently with a client, and one of her goals is around having more adventures in the new year. And I was like, ooh, this is fun, because setting that range of, okay, what's the minimum viable like version of that, of what would still count as having more adventures for you? What's the minimum amount? Is it like just a few hours each week of doing like a little adventure, or does it need to be like an overnight, and it needs to be at least once a quarter to count? So it needs to happen 4 times, right? And then also thinking about the max, because it's like, okay, if you're doing as many adventures as possible, there's still a limitation to that. And even getting honest with like, how much would you actually want if you could do the max? So setting a min, setting a max, that's for the goal itself, but also the action item. So with our 10,000 step example, I'd really encourage you with that type of goal to set, okay, but what's the minimum? As long as I do morning walks. I'm playing with the 10,000 step goal, but I've been doing morning walks for a while now. And part of what helped that become a deep habit is the min I set for myself was so doable. Even if I felt sick, even if I was injured, even if it was like crazy weather outside, I could still do the minimum, which was every morning I go outside, I spend like a moment, like a breath or two with the light on my face, on my skin. I'm being quiet, I'm with myself, and that's it. Like that counts as like that morning moment. And then the max, I never really set a max for it, but it would probably be like about an hour or so because I kind of need to get on with my day, right? So having that range is really powerful, and it creates a more dynamic goal rather than a rigid, static one. It's dynamic. It can fluctuate with you. So bring in a range for the action item, daily, weekly, whatever the cadence is, and then also give a range to the bigger goal itself. This allows you to, just like have the goal really serve you and evolve with you. The other way to counteract this rigid, static, not setting you up for success version of goals is to set some check-in points for the goal and to ask yourself the question, is this version of the goal, is this version of the action item I'm taking truly serving the bigger intention? So going back to the very beginning, right? We talked about intention, goals, action items. Is this serving the intention, the deeper feeling, right? How am I doing on that trajectory? And this is also where that inner compass of, is it aligned with my values? I had a really cool experience with my morning walks where I did this assessment and I realized I'd been doing the morning walks with my phone, just for music. Sometimes I'd check my messages. Sometimes I would voice memo with friends. And I realized, oh wow, the bigger intention behind this morning time for me and this morning walk was to feel really calm and centered and to be present with myself so that I could feel calmer, more patient, more present throughout the rest of the day. That it was like a quiet, sacred time leading into the rest of the day. And having my phone with me, even though I had somewhat good boundaries with like not checking email and stuff, it was kind of getting in the way of that feeling of just being present. And so with this assessment, I realized, it actually, having my phone with me means this action item isn't truly serving its bigger intention. So let's adjust. So I stopped bringing my phone. Oh my gosh. It's amazing because if I had kept doing it with my phone and not had that check-in, I think I would have stopped doing the morning walks at a certain point because I was feeling like, man, this isn't really serving me. I'm still feeling kind of overwhelmed when I start my day, and I'm starting my day a little like it's taking up time. Is that really helpful? It's not giving me the bigger outcome. Is it really helpful? Maybe I should stop. But because I was like, wait a second, how can I tweak this to serve the bigger intention? Bada bing, bada boom. It's awesome. It's like now I don't even think of it as a goal or an action item because it's just a habit. It's just deeply a habit. So to recap that, it was create a range, the min and the max version of the action item as well as the bigger goal. And set some check-ins. Now that could be once a month, once a quarter, where you're checking in. How is this goal feeling? Maybe you do it more organically. How are these action items feeling? Is there anything I need to tweak? Maybe it's that you realize the min that you set wasn't minimum enough and that there's been times where you felt like you couldn't successfully achieve that. And like a little secret tip hack here is when you're setting the minimum, because that's the trickiest part, especially for like high achievers. They're like, well, the min should obviously just be 9,000 if 10,000 is like what I actually want to do. But that minimum needs to really be that the two goals of that are, one, that you can do it basically no matter what is going on, that it's so doable. So it really needs to be scaled back as far as how much time it takes. And two, it needs to still serve that bigger intention. It needs to be connected to that intention in some way. Okay, cool. Now, this is lengthy, but we're going to keep digging in. Unintentional mistake number 3. I could go so deep on this, but I'm just going to touch on it because this topic warrants more time than what we have in today's video. So the third unintentional mistake is that when we're not only creating the goals, but especially as we're following through with them, we unintentionally abandon parts of ourselves. And why would we do this, right? Why would we do this? Well, I think, once again, similar to the ungrounded thing, we don't mean to. We don't realize we're doing it. It's totally under the radar. We don't realize we're doing it. And some of the time, I think there are ways that we actually reject certain parts of ourselves and we don't want them to come along for the ride. We think it's better to leave them in the dust. so that we can go on our glorious journey riding into the sunset. And what I'd like to invite you all to do instead is to think of all of the parts of you ultimately want to help you. Even that inner critic thinks it's helping on some level. This concept comes from internal family systems. There's a really wonderful book called No Bad Parts. And it's this idea that all of the parts of us are basically have deep down the same goal, which is to protect us and help keep us safe. That could be socially, that could be physically, that could be mentally, all of it. But these different parts have different understandings of how to achieve that and what the rules are of life. And a lot of times these parts kind of came into being at different points of trauma in our childhood and in our lives, and they have outdated belief systems about us and about life. And so it's okay that you have this. It's super normal. We all have this. And the issue with not including all the parts on the journey and kind of trying to leave them behind or unintentionally abandoning them is that they'll start to pull on us. They'll start to almost become this dragnet behind us, slowing down our progress, creating resistance, and potentially even creating like a sense of self-sabotage, right? So once again, there's so much more to say about that, but what I'd like to invite you all to do instead is to, well, actually, what's really cool about this process is getting grounded, connecting with your values, creating that min-max range and those check-in points. All of that is going to help bring more of the parts of you along for the ride. Just simply connecting with the body helps us connect with more of our parts and help all those parts feel more like they're part of it and like they're safe. But the other thing I'd like you to do to specifically address this is to acknowledge and notice the resistance that comes up with these goals and name it. So you could write it down, journal, and bring awareness of those parts to some form of processing. So whether that's breath work, therapy, coaching, journaling, talking to that best friend that we know you have. So whatever it is, spend some time with these parts and get to know them rather than trying to eliminate them. Invite them, embrace them. The what to do instead for this part is that rather than abandoning, I want you to embrace these parts. Bring them along for the ride. They don't have to drive the car, but they can be in the vehicle, right? And this is almost a form of reparenting ourselves, being kind and firm. Hey, I hear that this makes you uncomfortable, and we're going to be okay. I've got us. We're going to move forward. We're going to figure it out. It's okay to be uncomfortable because I've got you. I've got you. So once again, there's so much more I can say about that, but I'm going to end it there. Okay, so to recap, the three unintentional, there it is, unintentional mistakes and what to do instead. Rather than making a goal from an ungrounded place, get grounded, connect with your values. Rather than creating rigid, harsh goals and action items, create dynamic action items and goals that have a minimum, a max. They have these ranges. They also have these check-in points where you can make sure that they're really serving you. And part 3, rather than abandoning parts of yourself, include all the parts, welcome them along for the ride, and have ways that you're actively engaging with those resistance items. Oh, tapping is a really great way to help work with those parts too. And that's what I do with clients. So this is great. I'm so excited. What I'd love for you all to do now is, whether you've created your goals already or whether you're about to, you can bring this process to it, right? Get into your body, connect with your values, and look at those goals that you've created. As you look at those goals you've created, ask, is it in alignment with my values? Is it alignment with is there a clear intention for this goal? And then set that min-max, create those check-in times, and write out the parts that might feel a little freaked out by this goal, or that historically have come up as forms of resistance to this goal, and start to include them along for the ride and help them understand that you're safe, that it's okay to pursue this, and that you can adjust as you go. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sticking around till the end. I really hope that this whole process serves you and serves what you're wanting to create in the world, because you deserve to feel good on the journey and to be moving towards things that are truly meaningful for you and truly in alignment with all of you. All of you. My name is Michaela McDonald. I'm so glad you're here. If this was helpful, please share it. And you can like, you can subscribe. You know the deal. If you'd like to leave a comment about which specific action item you plan to take or which mistake, unintentional mistake, resonated, I'd love to read that in the comments below. Be well. Take care.